Hello, welcome to Letters of Paul to the Philippines. When people talk about the Church Fathers, it sounds official, almost mysterious. Like there's a secret list somewhere in Rome with all their names on it. But here's the surprise. There is no official list. No pope ever issued one. No church council voted on it. So who are the Church Fathers? And why do they matter so much nearly 2,000 years later? That's what we're unpacking today. When the term Fathers of the Church first started being used, it wasn't a formal title. It was more like a family term, a way early Christians referred to respected teachers from an earlier generation. Over time, the name just stuck. You'll often hear a textbook definition like this: the Church Fathers are those characterized by orthodoxy, holiness, antiquity, and church approval. Sounds neat and tidy until you look closer. What counts as ancient? How do we define holiness when some fathers were never canonized saints? What does church approval mean if there's no official list? And what about orthodoxy, when some fathers held ideas the church later rejected? So instead of forcing them into a rigid box, authors like Marcelino de Ambrosio suggest a better, more realistic definition. Here it is. The Church Fathers are the great Christian writers who passed on and clarified the teaching of the apostles from roughly the 2nd through the 8th centuries. That timing matters. This does not include the New Testament era itself. The apostles and eyewitnesses stand in a class of their own. The fathers come after, when those eyewitnesses are gone. And the church has to preserve, explain, and defend what it received. This era stretches from about AD 100 to AD 800, carrying us through the first 7 ecumenical councils, where Christianity wrestled with its biggest question, or questions. How can God be one and yet 3 persons? How can Jesus be fully God and fully human? In other words, these OGs and unks were thinkers who helped Christianity grow up. They took the faith out of its diapers and into adulthood. 700 years is a long time, so let's break it down. Number 1, the age of persecution. Ante or pre-Nicene Fathers. From about AD 100 to 325, being Christian could get you killed. Within this group, we find the Apostolic Fathers. These are the OG OGs. They were called Ante-Nicene Fathers. Ante meaning before the Council of Nicaea. First, the Apostolic Fathers, AD 50 to 150. These are the closest voices to the apostles themselves. Some were direct disciples, others personally knew them. Their writings begin around AD 95, and their importance is hard to exaggerate. They help us understand what the apostles meant by what they wrote, what they taught orally but never put into scripture. They are our bridge between the New Testament and the new generation. So the core Apostolic Fathers universally described or recognized are Saint Clement of Rome, Saint Ignatius of Antioch, Saint Polycarp of Smyrna. And some associated apostolic writings are the Didache, the Shepherd of Hermas, the Epistle of Barnabas. Now we go to the Apologists, AD 150 to 325. All right? Many were brilliant converts, former philosophers or scholars who turned their learning toward defending Christianity. And the major Catholic apologists are as follows: Saint Justin Martyr, Saint Irenaeus of Lyons, Athenagoras, Theophilus of Antioch, Tertullian, Origen, Tatian, Minucius Felix, and Lactantius. They wrote against pagan critics, Jewish objections, Christian heresies. These are some of the Church's intellectual OGs, the brave unks who defended the faith in public when Christianity was still legal and dangerous. Again, their goal wasn't to apologize for the faith, but to defend it. This period culminates in a turning point that changed everything. In AD 313, the Edict of Milan legalized Christianity, and just 12 years later, the Church held its first great ecumenical council, the Council of Nicaea in AD 325. From here on, we enter the era of the Nicene and post-Nicene Fathers. Over the next 2 centuries, core Christian doctrines were defined by 4 major councils. The great liturgical traditions of East and West took shape, and the final canon of the New Testament was settled. This is the period many scholars call the Golden Age of the Fathers. And the core Nicene Fathers are as follows: Athanasius, Basil the Great, Gregory of Nazianzus, Gregory of Nyssa, Hilary of Poitiers, Ambrose of Milan, and the core post-Nicene Fathers were Jerome, Augustine, John Chrysostom, Cyril of Alexandria, Leo the Great, Gregory the Great, John of Damascus. And they were scattered all over. For example, Augustine and Ambrose were in the west, Athanasius and Basil in the east. These are the doctrinal OGs and unks who defined the Trinity and Christology, reshaped or shaped the Bible itself, liturgy, and creeds, and handed the apostolic faith to every generation after them. Without these towering fathers, Christianity, as we know it, doesn't exist. Their influence still shapes Christianity today. So from the 6th to the 8th centuries, we reach the final phase. Okay, the 6th to 8th century fathers: Gregory the Great, Isidore of Seville, Maximus the Confessor, Sophronius of Jerusalem, John Climacus, Bede the Venerable, John of Damascus. Think of it as an afterglow. These fathers didn't reinvent the faith. So they were the closers, the wise unks who protected the Church's doctrinal gains, organized theology and spiritually, and handed the apostolic faith into the medieval world, ensuring that the wisdom of earlier centuries would not be lost. After them, the Church went from Patristic era into the Scholastic era. So the Church Fathers are more than historical figures. They are a cloud of witnesses to what the apostles lived and taught. But they didn't just preserve tradition, they reshaped it by developing new vocabulary, by offering key insights, by clarifying hard truths when confusion threatened the faith. They helped the Church understand itself, and fittingly, as the Ambrosio notes, the story both begins and ends in Rome, the city of Peter and Paul, because in the end, the Church Fathers, true OGs and wise unks of both East and West, weren't just theologians. They were spiritual parents handing down the faith one generation at a time. That was another Letters of Paul to the Philippines. Please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. God bless you.